I would like to see close with this content and language analysis. And the research done with it needs to be complete and thorough. And we really need to make sure we have the historical aspect ingrained within language policy and regulations, especially in the field of education and ASL education. We really need to look at all the specifics in different countries, and even in Mexico and many other areas. Should we accept this? Are we giving them equal opportunity? Are we grateful for their work? In the future, it's very important that we focus on the past as well. We need to look in the rearview mirror and make sure we aren't getting into an accident. You have to keep your perspectives around you. We need to analyze and unpack really what the source is of ASL. We need to accept different types and again include the history and incorporate that in our work. Again, with visibility and having that as a power in your interpretations or in your sign language. Hopefully in the future we will shift and we will accept this and it'll be very cool. And we'll understand how wonderful ASL is. We'll be able to have a conversation about different languages and be able to accept it in different areas locally, different countries. We have to erase what's going on or has gone in the past. It's never too late to change. Especially with the evolving deaf community in our world today. We have to represent the Black, deaf American culture. We need to definitely accept and embrace diversity in our work. Experience, background also needs to be contributions. We can always have a positive future if we're open to change and if we're open-minded. And that will give us the level of acceptance that is required. I think it's time for us to have an open conversation about this. It needs to be a healthy dialogue. Is ASL too white? One second. Okay. Wow. What did you think, Liz? What are your thoughts on this? The discussion was amazing. It was very powerful. We also were able to give information, rich information. Because when we think about it, all 7 of us panelists have an answer to this question as well. Is ASL too white? And as we can see in the video, the answer was yes. We're missing diversity in sign language. The point of that was being able to point out the world and the different various ways people are raised and how they acquire language in our community. And arriving to academic language policies and able to communicate with different people and children of color. We need the educational system to understand the language policies of our language and of ASL. We need to ask ourselves about those policies. The question about ASL and how it's recognized and how it's official language. Who came up with that origin and made that decision? It needs to include diverse perspectives of Indigenous people and different perspectives outside and inside our community. Those perspectives will be able to add to our discussion. Our body language, eye contact, body movement is different in ASL. It's not the same. The curriculum that's being used sets the foundation for these different parameters of ASL. And then we ask ourselves, what is ASL really? It's not the same standard white ASL compared to black ASL. I think it's time to get some discussions, formal discussions from our panelists. I would really enjoy their courage and their different perspectives, that they're proud and able to share that information with us. I wish we had more time to show the full video. It's very amazing. It goes into depth even more throughout the video, but I just showed you a short clip. And luckily I have access to all of it. But I have to tell you, it's absolutely amazing to study and think about the research. It's very beneficial to us, and I'm the interim of Chief Bilingual Officer. And yes, I understand what we're looking at in ASL, but look at this L. That means my name. We need to consider full English and ASL, and what professionals of those 7 panelists. They're skilled, they have an education, they have perspectives that is very valuable. Dr. Janelle Russ talked about her perspective for all of us to be able to come together and try to form one cohesive language. And that change was required for the deaf Indigenous people to be recognized that it's different. And I do completely agree with her. I think they're very brave And from my heart, I just really want to say thank you and that they studies. I do understand that. I hope in the future it can continue to be positive. Now it's time to turn the floor over to our panelists and discuss the social aspect. And we're going to listen in. You have about 15 minutes, and then we'll have a question and answer. And then we'll give more thinking and thoughts and feedback to each other. This was the best way to view them all. Our technician will spotlight the person that's talking, and then they'll bring it back to me when we have the questions and answers. And we'll take turns that way. Because I want our entire audience to be involved and be able to speak at any time. All right, our 7 panelists, please open your screen and come on in. Ready? I see all your squares popping up. Your picture's really small, so I'm going to try to figure this out so I can see. Oh, great. Perfect. Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. I want to introduce each one of you, and then we'll be able to start our discussion. So I'm going to introduce you one at a time, and then you guys will have a time to share your opinions and your thoughts about the clip, or continuing off what you have already said during the clip, going into some more detail of your thoughts. Hello. I study social linguistics. Yay, that's wonderful. Next. Gloshanda, lawyer. Hi, everyone. I'm a lawyer, and I'm an assistant and educator in deaf studies. Woohoo! Hello, my name is Dominic Harrison. I am the 7th year PhD student at the University of Mexico. I'm also a deaf educator. Yay! Next. Hello, everybody. I am Carolyn McCaskill. I'm a deaf educator for Gallaudet University, as well as the founder of Center for Black Deaf Studies. Hello, my name is Janelle Roos, my sign name. Recently, I started a position with Western Ontario as an assistant professor in Canada. I've been a K-12 educator for many, many years. And I'm an artist. I'm here. I'm very delighted to be here. Yay. Next. Yes, congratulations. I recently graduated also. Great, wonderful. Next. Welcome. My name is Dr. Rezant Mogaz Riedel. I am a full-time lecturer at California State University, Long Beach. and in the ASL linguistics department. I'm soon leaving, but I'm an adjunct professor, and so I'm happy to be here. It's quite the honor. And this is my very good friend, Melanie. Hi, I'm Melanie McKay Cody. I study linguist. I'm a linguist and also social cultural. I'm an adjunct professor at Gallaudet. Thank you. I'm proud of you all for remembering the past, and a few of us were just here. And now we've added more Black, Indigenous, Deaf people. It really gives me a lot of hope. But I'd love to hear you all talk. Raise your hand and give me just a moment. So my I can spotlight you. We would like to discuss reflection from the video. One second, I'm gonna spotlight you, Janelle. One second, it's loading. There we go, ready, thank you. I think about the research that I have done, and it's very important. There's a conversation about school assessment and analyzing that, and knowing what the standards are. The age of the person being assessed is vital. We need to know who the person is, and that will affect the results. We need to know how to answer and how to be responsive. In my experience, one person that was Indigenous and was from a family that had strong ASL skills. Oh, can you adjust your screen, please? Thank you. So the assessment was finished, and somebody talks with this young person and decided what things look like. Then they go back and create an assessment using all that information by discussing those things within that Indigenous deaf individual. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm going to spotlight you now so I can see you better. Because everyone else can't see you very well. It's a very small box. So if our technical people can please help us, how do we get to the speaker on our big screen? I don't know if I should say gallery view, maybe, to handle this. I want to make sure everybody is as widely as possible on their screen to make a determination. In gallery view, you should be okay if you just keep yourself where you are. For the previous comment from Dr. Janelle, everybody wasn't able to see what she said fully. Do we have any responses to what Janelle said? Did you have something? So let's go to moving on to Glashanda. I have a very same experience dealing with speaking to myself and my background. I come from a multi-language background and actually moved to another country from that country and moved to the United States. And I started to write about that language use, about ASL, and I analyzed it, and with evaluations as well. And since I moved here from a different country, my home signs are different in ASL. And now I am trying to focus on ASL in English because I live in the USA. And I want to focus also on American Sign Language so it can be one standard and I have that perspective. Because I have many family and friends that are multilingual, and I want to learn how to respond to those languages and have an equal opportunity to learn those different languages as well. Because many times they're trying to separate themselves. So I want to have an influence on them and show that even though there's impacted from their home, I believe that is wrong. Because when we think about translanguaging only one way, using that point of view, we use it to analyze the potential of what they can do, and so forth. To any deaf students who are multilingual users of the language. And it seems like we continue to perseverate on that standard. Maybe it's because it's easier to think, well, if it's wide. But for us teachers, I'm not sure that's the right point of view. A challenge to analyze this. When an evaluator has an effect as well, it can be very complicated, and we need to make sure we study those different messages from other people and get their feedback. Who has the next comment, please? Definitely Mr. Dominic Harrison. Dominic, the floor is yours. I agree with the two comments. I've been an interpreter for 17 years and had a lot of deaf and hard of hearing students and at the New Mexico School for the Deaf. We had different types of teacher. There's other Black deaf teachers. And I was able to recognize that this was the beginning of my teaching journey. I needed to practice with presenting and learn how to work with high school and middle students, high school and middle school students. I had indigenous students in my class. I wanted to encourage them to use facial expressions in ASL to be more expressive. Because growing up in the Black deaf community, those facial expressions are critical and quite different than English ASL. So it's also hard to see all that effort and grading their presentation skills. And it was hard for me to give bad or good grades because it's all about perspective. We had wonderful schools and experiences. And I was able to work with my brother at Gallaudet University, having such a great time. The teachers encouraged us to use sign language and interact with each other in their language, sign language. I realized that school, I was teaching them as well. And we had different standards, but we were able to work together and measure equality. Because they have to sign a certain way, like I mentioned earlier during my presentation, I talked about racial linguisticism, thinking about what was accepted. And when we go out in everyday life, situations and things will be different. And we need to be able to work through those things. Wow, thank you. You're right. Growing up, following the white standards, it's hard to transition. And we're unconscious in learning those things. And after graduating Gallaudet and being in the Black community, I found myself signing and code switching, expressive in my language. And I realized that I still had some things to work out with my language development. It was a challenge. Good, thank you. And this is a challenge for all of us, I'm sure. We have 10 minutes left, and then we'll turn it over to question and answer. Does anyone else want to give their perspective? Joseph? Hill? When we're talking about analyzing in regards to assessments and determining what criteria is used, I was thinking about what types of standards that we had already that existed and how to identify those in our community and share that with our identity. I think it takes a lot of courage, and most of the work has been done by white linguists. So it's hard to go back and relearn what you already know. In our teaching standards, with recognizing other ways to handle things, I mean, ASL is just a different ways to use ASL. And so that's something worth considering, I believe. And there's several ways to continue to access people. We really need to think about the decisions that we're making related to language, because there are people with degrees in certain places that have to make all these decisions, and it's critical that we make the right one. There's many people that are continuing to study deaf, Black education, getting advanced degrees. We see those people become gatekeepers for access to language and to enter into the educational system and have some knowledge, background knowledge, to become successful. So we have to think about it in other ways so we can become more familiar with other perspectives and be able to support each other as well. There's many different ways. We don't need to argue and focus so much on the result other than just focusing on the now and what we can do to improve. We have to also think about what we're allowing us to do. There's contributions that can happen in different ways. There's some people who may not be holding a professional or advanced degree. And that's okay. They can still offer so many different perspectives, real life perspectives and experiences in other countries. My other colleagues that I work with are social linguistics, and they allow people's contributions and be able to learn from each other as well. And that just gains more knowledge for everybody. This is a challenge, I know, but there are solutions. School districts have places of power and may differ. We have about 5 more minutes. Oh, we do have a question from Melanie, I believe. I didn't want to dovetail what Joseph had said, but I want people who want to become educators to have done the research ahead of time. Because deaf staff of people of color and people that go to have education in their PhD, they have to also have a dissertation and they need to do that research.